coming to you with another episode of what's going on in these playoffs with the NBA. Right now is probably the gateway, the doorway to the most exciting time of the season for me. Like, if I'm honest with you, I enjoy the off season probably more than I do the regular season. Like, I love the playoffs, but the regular season is like, okay, it's playing out what you've seen transpire and develop for the whole off season, summer league, draft, preseason, um, and then you see it play out. And then it gets interesting around the trade deadline and see the adjustments that organizations are making, whether they're pushing for the playoffs, whether they're pushing for the play-in, or whether they're dropping out the race altogether. And then you got the playoffs, and then it's back to the offseason. Now, I know it's still the playoffs, and the playoffs is good as hell. I can't wait to see if Jaylen Brown can pull out a second game for the Boston Celtics in New York. If he does, look, if Jaylen Brown pulls out this game 6 in New York and Boston wins, yo, we have to start talking about him differently. Like, I know his game is not as smooth and aesthetically appealing as others, but damn it, if it ain't effective, and it was effective in game 5, can it be effective in game 6? That's what we're going to find out later on. But I'm here to talk to you all about this offseason. The teams that lost in the playoffs. Now, I know in the subject heading, I know I said at the end, losers, called them losers, right? And I'm not saying they are losers. I'm saying they just lost in the playoffs. And I think that the difference between any of the other remaining teams is that those who have lost already in the playoffs are not championship contenders. Not at all. Even a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers, I think they were shown and exposed that what they lack is the ability to show up when it matters the most. You can only have this happen so many times in the playoffs. It's the third year in a row. Playoffs, you crumble. Your body wears down. Physically, you are not able to show up when it matters the most. So something is going to have to change. You are not a championship contender if you can't depend upon your best players to be there. So I'm going to go through each of the teams. I got a list here that I'm going to check off. I think the next video, I'm going to go and talk about the play-in losers because I've been telling you this offseason is going to be fireworks. This offseason, you're going to see more adjusting. You're going to see more teams becoming fragmented and looking to supplement certain players with cheaper players, some ineffective players with more veteran players, i.e., the Golden State Warriors. You are going to see a lot of adjustments made because teams, one, they don't want to be in that second apron. They don't want to be deep in the tax threshold while at the same time not performing. And I think that organizations are getting smarter and smarter. The league is getting that much more talented year after year after year. Like some of these young guys, man, the G League is going to be lit because some of these young guys just simply aren't going to be better than the veterans that are in front of them, period. And they know how to win more and they have bigger contracts that the general manager invested in. And so they're more invested in them playing well. So unless you're a top lottery pick or you're blowing your team away during training camp, you're probably going to be in the G League. But let's dive into this. I'm going to go through each team one at a time, talk about the state of the franchise. I'm actually going to write so I remember to go through each one. State of franchise. I'm going to talk about roster, construction, off season, free agency, and draft. All right. Y'all ready? Remember, this is an interactive live. So if you want to throw down your comments, suggestions, thoughts, ideas in the chat, I'm going to do my best to keep up with it as I go. But if I miss you, if I didn't get to it, and you really want me to stop and pause and talk about something that you're mentioning, shoot me out a super chat, and we can chop it up, and I'll pause, and then I'll get back to it afterward. All right, let's go. We're gonna start off with my Detroit Pistons. I say my Detroit Pistons because I've been a follower of this franchise for the past couple seasons. And when I say follower, I mean like committed. Like all my videos that I've been doing on the Detroit Pistons have come after games that I've seen at least twice. I watch it the first time through as a fan. I pick up on things with my background in coaching and athletic development and training and psychology and all this other stuff that I have in my educational experiential bag, right? Because I'm a little bit older, so I've done some things. But then I watch it a second time for really specific thoughts and ideas that I've had from watching the game the first time through to see if that was really what it was. And if it proves that it is, I'm going to talk about it. So I've been following them for the past couple of years, mainly because of the Thompson twins. They've been folks that I've rocked with because they're from where I'm from, the Bay Area. I want to say like East Bay for sure, where I'm currently living in the Bay Area. So I rock with them, following them. I'm excited to talk about them. Let's start with the Pistons. The Detroit Pistons state of the franchise is in a great place. They have an identity, they have a coach, they got a front office that's rolling. They've been successful in bringing in the right pieces to press the right buttons to get this team to effectively move forward. And they have had one of the better, if not the best, one of the greatest turnarounds in NBA history, tripling their win total from the previous year. And I know we've talked about that at large, and so everybody's kind of aware of that, but it needs to be stated up front. This means that you can trust the direction you're heading in. And that is a big deal because there are a lot of these teams that are going to be questioning the direction they're heading in because it's already played out. For the Pistons, it hasn't played out fully yet. They have about 2 more years to see if the direction that they have designated, that the front office and coaching staff have designated for this team, for this era, is heading in the right direction. And that means that you continuously show progress, either in the development of your players, the winning, which results in the winning of your team, and you see the team coming together in terms of its culture, its identity, gameplay, and performance, right? If you see these things progressing each year significantly, then you can say you're heading in the right direction. If you don't see these things, it's an indication that you may need to take a look at your front office. And some organizations already have. With the Pistons, I think they're in a great place. They're in a great place. The next part of it is the roster construction. Now, this is something that it's hard because you get sucked in, especially on social media, because there's so many people who want to talk about what this team needs to do, should do, who they should go after. You got Zion Williamson being thrown out there. You got random dudes. They just want to see the Pistons do something. Right? They just want to say, go after marketing, go after Zion, go after this guy, and go after that guy. And most of these people saying these things, making these suggestions, especially on ESPN, if they're on a mainstream channel, they don't follow the Pistons, y'all. They might talk about them to the extent of, okay, they've had an incredible turnaround. Okay, they've been able to perform and do certain things. That's awesome. That's great. But they're not watching the games. So they're making suggestions without actually understanding how this roster has progressed and who they truly already have on this team. I have said continuously, purposefully, that this roster is incredibly well positioned and structured to move forward into the future and be the core for a championship team as currently constructed. And what I'm talking about is the core. The Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey backcourt complements perfectly. Yes, I would love it if they had a higher, maybe basketball IQ in terms of reading the game at a high level, but that's because I'm just pointing out something that matters, but yet I'm probably, just being a stickler. Not everybody can be Chris Paul. Not everybody can be LeBron James. Not everybody can be that guy who has such a high processing ability like the Luka Doncic's and maybe an Anthony Edwards, that they're processing the game at such a high level. I don't know if Anthony Edwards is there just yet, but maybe a Draymond Green where you see the game happening and you can manipulate the game. Not everybody processes at that level. So that's what I'm kind of pointing to. It doesn't um, minimize the IQ that they currently have in the league already. They're in the NBA for a reason. They're a part of the core for a future championship team, likely for a reason. They're talented. They've shown up consistently, especially this last season, and they've shown promise. a great work ethic, and they're developing together. I think their age proximity makes them even more of a perfect pairing. When you look at Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey being, it's rare to have a Oklahoma City situation where you got SGA, you've got uh, Jalen Williams, you got Chet Holmgren, all within the same age grouping. That means these guys are growing together, developing together, and they're going to be your cornerstone. So it's really rare to find that. Other teams like the Miami Heat, yo, the Miami Heat have Bam Adebayo, who's close to 30, Tyler Hero, closer to 24, 25. You got Kalel Ware, who's 21. You got Nikola Jovic, who's like 23, I want to say, right? The age range is all over the place. So where they're headed in the future, you're kind of looking at like, well, do we build around this guy and this guy? Or do we focus more on these guys or maybe these guys, right? And it kind of throws you off a little bit. Shane Gretzky was good, my man. Mr. Can't Get No Writer. That just might be me when it comes to these Pistons, man. I love the situation. I love the situation. Asar Thompson, Mr. X-Man himself, do-it-all player, all over the place. I think he only takes that much greater of a jump next season. His ability to play in so many different ways and so many different styles all over the court and be incredibly effective is just one of those enigma, one of a kind talents. It's almost like when you saw LeBron James in the finals against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He was doing everything. He was doing, and that's Amin Thompson and Asar Thompson. They have the physical and athletic and skill abilities to play and impact the game across the board. Yes, they can improve shooting. But as we saw with LeBron, he got better too at shooting. I think the Thompson twins will improve as well at shooting, especially with Fred Vincent now in Detroit, having one of the best shooting coaches in the NBA. I think they're going to take a huge jump. And I say they because they're also competitive brothers. These are two brothers that love to compete against each other. So they're going to be pushing each other outside of the competition that's already on the team. Right, and so you love to have that internal drive to get better, to improve your game year after year after year, because you're looking over your shoulder at your brother, your real brother, that you got to go home for Thanksgiving and see mama with, your brother that you got to go to the family engagements with, and talk about what we did against y'all, right? Like these are the things that drive you to get better and improve and develop every single day, every single day, and that was instilled in them from a young age, right? Then you got Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren, I think he's a better defensive Alperen Şengün by next year. By next year, I think he gives you that fringe all-star, kind of where Şengün was this year. He got in because guys got hurt, right? Sabonis' team wasn't winning. AD didn't play enough games and stuff like that, and so he gets in. That's the type of situation that Jalen Duren is going to be in. Right, if Jared Allen gets traded or isn't playing well, gets hurt, Embiid situation, Miles Turner situation, Evan Mobley, and all of a sudden, Duren is the one who gets called up, and he's an all-star. I foresee that happening next year. I can see him around 16 to 18 points a game, 10 to 12 rebounds, high efficiency, maybe a block or more per game, plus about 3, 4 assists. He operates more as the hub, pick and roll, and begins to show more consistent signs of creating his own offense. I think he's gonna have a big jump next year. I think his biggest jump will be in year 5, but I think he's gonna have a big jump next year. All that to say is this roster is in great form. And then you got guys like Ron Holland, Bobby Clement, Marcus Sasser, Tolu Smith, even Isaiah Stewart. They got a lot of young guys that are extremely promising in the same age bracket, which is a wonderful thing to have for a team that was the number 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. But then you look at this team and you say, well, then where do they improve? And this is where the offseason kicks in. Where they improve is on the fringes, but very important fringes. Your veteran leadership. It was great having Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley, but their lack of defensive acumen got exposed. Their lack of ability to play make and facilitate and to do other things like rebound or have defensive versatility got exposed. All of a sudden, we had a 6 foot 2.5 or 6'3" Malik Beasley guarding 6 foot 8. Uh, uh, what's his name? Mikael Bridges or Josh Hart, and they just got dwarfed. They couldn't rebound, they couldn't defend, and they were getting ran off the 3-point line. And so there's an opportunity for the Pistons to upgrade those periphery positions. Now I mentioned before there's guys like Chris Middleton, guys like Marcus Smart, guys like even Malcolm Brogdon. I like Jabari Smith Jr., but he might cost too much. Jabari Walker is also a good option. Bruce Brown and other guys like that. But that's where the greatest improvement is going to be for this team: the internal development of the core and their ability to improve the veterans off the bench. All right. So I don't see Malik Beasley or Tim Hardaway Jr. really coming back. They might want to because of chemistry and maintaining the aura of this past season. Sure. But they should not overpay in the least bit. In the least bit. I think that would be a mistake. In fact, I probably think it would be a mistake to just even bring them back, considering the identity that you want to have is the defensive toughness. You want to have that physicality. You want to have guys that when the going gets tough, everybody plays harder, tougher, more physical. They get up into you. Detroit basketball. Detroit basketball isn't necessarily more threes. That's not really what they need. And outside of that, that's really what it is from those two. And also see Jaden Ivey taking a lot of the minutes. So, but I've talked about that at length. In the draft for them, things are really shaping up in the draft. And when I say shaping up, I mean that this draft, especially at the draft combine right now, getting people's measurements, getting their whether they're going to go back to school or not. A lot of these guys are, I guess, moving up a ladder, moving down a ladder in terms of the draft positioning. But that means that there are some guys who are going to fall, and there are some guys who are going to be raising up. And the Detroit Pistons, picking at 37, are going to have a lot of options. They're going to have a lot of different directions to go. Though I'm not necessarily betting on whoever they draft being a significant difference maker, if that makes sense. I don't think that they're going to be someone we're going to hinge going into next season on. I think Ron Holland takes a jump. Bobby Klintman steps in. Marcus Sasser. All these guys, their bench unit is going to be pretty much set outside of whatever veterans that we bring in. But with that said, I've still been on Chaz Lanier. I like him a lot at 37, coming out of University of Tennessee. He measured at, I want to say, six. What was it? Quickly check again. He measured out at, I want to say 6'4", 6'5". Chaz Lanier. That's Knuppel. Wolf. Where is he at? Now, this is important because the comparison that I had for Chaz Lanier was my brother in, uh, where is he at? Chaz Lanier, Chaz Lanier, Chaz Lanier. As I look for him, the shooting guard in Memphis. Okay, I can't find it. I don't know why I just saw it a second ago. But all that's to say is Chaz Lanier reminds me a lot of the shooting guard in Memphis. All right. Catch and shoot guy, ready trigger, um, Desmond Bain. That's who he reminds me of a lot. And when you see a guy who played all 4 years in college, was a leader for 3 out of those 4 years, a primary scorer, someone who his team depended upon with great against great competition and had to figure out how to step up each and every year. Those are guys who know how to come into the NBA and contribute immediately. Those are guys who have a refined game and understand how to play a part of a greater whole while still maximizing their talent. These are extremely valuable draft picks. These aren't guys you're gonna have to send down to the G League like a Bobby Klintman. right? These aren't necessarily guys um, who you're, trying to see if they develop. They come in ready. The same way that Marcus Sasser came in his rookie year and was dropping 20-point games, was in summer league and had a 40-point game, had a 40 ball, right? That's what a Chaz Lanier, I think, is going to do. He's going to show you flashes that, like, yeah, if you can carve out a space for him, he can do this consistently for you. And I think that that's what there is for the Detroit Pistons. I'm gonna move on because I talk at length about the Detroit Pistons. A lot of the stuff I'm already just repeating. We got the Golden State Warriors. Any Warriors fans in the chat? Holla at me about what you think is going on. The state of the organization, the state of this team. I'm gonna be honest with you. The Golden State Warriors are in a state of flux. They are in a place where they are going to have to recalibrate. Um, and really think about who they are, who they want to be, and what it's going to look like moving forward. Injuries to Stephen Curry, to Jimmy Butler, guys that they have invested financially heavily in, and Draymond Green as a part of that core. Uh, they have an extremely limited window. And this idea that they could build for the future and the present has not worked out. The limitations of their head coach, Steve Kerr, has made that insurmountably clear. He is not changing. He is not going to all of a sudden become a developmental coach, which means that whoever you bring in this offseason, when you do your sign and trade with Jonathan Kaminga, uh, hopefully they also do one with Moses Moody. Though I think Moody will look far better next season as a starting shooting guard between Jimmy Butler and Stephen Curry, because I think Jimmy gets the young guys involved in ways that Steph and Draymond just don't. Kind of like that old guard that just doesn't want to let anybody else step in and don't know how to step back. But I understand that too because the entire offense is built around those two of Draymond and Stephen Curry. All that's to say is they're going to have to really think about who they bring in here because they can't afford to keep wasting uh, off seasons. Now I know D'Anthony Melton blew out his knee, tore his ACL. That wasn't foreseeable. But even then, Steve Kerr was struggling with his rotations, playing, 10, 12 guys every night. Guys did not know what minutes they were going to have. Guys did not know what the role that they were going to have outside of the core of Steph and Draymond. It was up in the air of what to expect. Kayvon Looney has been around long enough to be able to discern, what the play style is, and I think he fits because he has very low expectations for himself on this roster. And when I say low expectations, I mean he understands who he is and who he's not, and so he doesn't mind not getting the minutes and things going up and down. I think that he he plays that good old boy role, old Fredrickson, he's always, such a good guy, always does the right thing, all that talk is just basically like you don't really speak your mind and you don't really ruffle anyone's feathers and you just concede to whatever someone else above you tells you to do and you get it done, and that's what he does. That's what he does. I don't mean to mock him. I just think that that's why they love him so much because the reality is they've needed an upgrade over him all along. And when I say all along, I mean all along. Kayvon Looney, I'm not knocking him as a player, but I'm saying if you're a championship team, is he really enough? Now, you could point to the 21-22 championship run. He had some good moments, but is he enough? Is he enough? Is he enough against the Dallas Mavericks with AD and Gafford and Lively? And they got massive size on the interior and on the wings. Now with Cooper Flag likely, got guys like PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, and now Clay Thompson. Does he really hold you down against those athletic bigs that are running up and down the court? Can he hold it down against a Nikola Jokic? Can he hold it down against guys who can assault the rim against the Minnesota Timberwolves, which he couldn't, right? He has real limitations. And so he's really, at best, a backup center. He's not a starting center. So then who is for the Warriors? And that's where we look at this roster construction. They need to figure out, is it Quentin Post? Is it Trace Jackson Davis? Who's on a minimal deal. Quentin Post, I think he was undrafted, but he does have uh, a year next year for just under 2 million, so that's a great deal. They might keep that trio, but I also think that there's an opportunity in this draft to upgrade that trio. I also think that there's an opportunity in free agency when they trade Jonathan Kaminga to bring back a real asset. The asset that I want for them, if I'm honest, is my man from Philadelphia. And I've been talking about him a lot. I've been talking about him since he left Detroit last year. Let me pull him up real quick. Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes. 6'5" shooting guard, volume 3-point shooter who has playmaking, facilitating ability. He also is a dog on defense. High IQ player that can play off the ball, play within different types of systems and sets. He can create his own offense or create for others. And he knows how to do the little things outside of just scoring. So he gives you a little bit of it. Almost imagine you get GP2 with a Buddy Hield with a little bit of Brandon Pajemski, like all mixed up in a 6'5" guard. He's going to defend, he's going to facilitate and play make, and he's going to play off the ball as well as defense, right? It, I think he's a great asset for this team. I think if they can package something like Jonathan Kaminga and what's his name, Moses Moody, right? That's about 15 plus $1 million there. I think they can do a sign and trade and get that back and pay that to Quentin Grimes and give him a 3 to 4 year deal. I think that would be a great, great pickup for the Golden State Warriors. But that's the types of moves that I think they need to make in the draft. However, and I want to get to your points that you guys are making in the chat in a moment. When I look at the draft for the Golden State Warriors, they are also picking in that second round. And there are some key players that I think the Golden State Warriors at number 41 would be really smart to try to lock in on. If I'm the Golden State Warriors, there's an opportunity to get some size, some real size. One of the guys that I like is Rocco Zikarski. 7'4", 7'3" and a half without shoes. So 7'4" with shoes. It's kind of weird to say because, of course, he wears shoes. He's athletic, light on his feet, has about a 7'4" and a half wingspan, but is known as a defensive player who's extremely springy. Almost imagine like a 7'4" version of Derek Lively. Finishes well around the rim, dunks everything, can finish with either hand, has good touch around the rim, has that international style of play. So he knows how to play within a system, moving without the ball, where to be, talking on defense, setting screens. He knows how to do all the toolsy stuff, and yet he still has really good upside. Now he's young. He's young, right? He's only, I want to say, let me see, born in '06. He's only 19 years old. However, however, I think that he is going to be able to grow and develop over the next year or so in the G League, get in that G League, vein. And by next year, by the following year, so probably 2026, 27, he's going to come in and look like a monster. He's going to look like a monster. He's going to look like, oh, yeah, yeah, you guys found your starting center. And this starting center is going to be able to contribute in the playoffs. High basketball IQ guy. If you're playing internationally at a young age, starting for your team or playing a lot of minutes and contributing at a high level, you're learning the game at an accelerated rate than I would say most of these NCAA players do, because the level of competition is lower in terms of physicality. You also get more complex coaching because you have an older group that you're with. So you're playing with guys who have a higher IQ. So you're learning more with these veterans. And then you come into the NBA, you generally have to acclimate to the speed and the spacing and the style of the NBA, which is unique to any other league, even college, outside of maybe like the G League. But it's to say, after you acclimate to that, you're able to step into a lot more high leverage situations and teams. Let me get to some of these comments here. Yeah, definitely love the 4-year college players for sure. D Wade type shit. Yeah, stayed 3 years. Tari Eason from the Rockets looks like a Pistons type of player. He does. He does look like a Pistons type of player. Though I don't think he's going anywhere from Houston. I think Coach Udoka loves him. Absolutely loves him. And he's going to continue to develop him, keep him in the roster lineup, and he's going to be rolling for them. Speaking of which, the Rockets, state of the franchise. I think the Rockets are at a crossroads with Fred Van Vliet's extension coming up. You have Jalen Green with a subpar first playoffs. It was rough. He had one great game and four terrible games, or actually five or six really bad games. Um, and he did not show up in the way that you would have hoped that your primary scorer, the guy that you're paying the most and thinking that you could build around, would show up. You expected more consistency. You expected him to be able to put stuff together, at least learn at a rate where he progressed throughout the series, and he just didn't. I thought I was going to say Drummond for Golden State. No, because Drummond today plays a lot like Kayvon Looney, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that. But all this to say is that I think with the Houston Rockets, when they're looking at this roster, and even Alperen Sengun, I think they realize Alp is probably best suited if you're looking at a championship team. At best, is your third option. Is your third option. I think they also realize that putting such a defensive burden on him in the front court is not to his best interest in terms of his own productivity, especially on the offensive end. If I'm the Houston Rockets, one of the things that I'm really locked in on is developing and playing Jabari Smith Jr. alongside of Alperen Sengun. They've done it before in the past, but he got hurt this past season. Amen Thompson was inserted into the lineup. They didn't want to mess with that, but as a result, the team was somewhat small on the interior. So Alperen Sengun had to do a lot of work to cover the rim, to secure defensive rebounds, and he was involved in a lot of pick and roll actions and screens and switching and chasing and hedging and still getting back. I think that overwhelmed him a bit, and it left the Rockets vulnerable because as he wore down from his defensive assignments, he was not able to keep up his energy on the offensive end. And I think that that's something that we have to keep an eye on. I think next season, Dylan Brooks goes to the bench. I also think Jalen Green is on the clock. He's got maybe one more year to prove that he can be him. Remember, he was drafted with Cade ahead of Kaminga, with Moses Moody, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Johnson. He was in that draft. So he was drafted above a lot of other talented young guys. So the expectations are going to be higher. He has to prove he can be consistent. Consistent. Not all world, but consistent. I think he will. I don't think he'll ever be truly all that consistent, but I think he will learn to consistently, more often than not, have a big game. I think he is going to show that he can figure out how to be his best self more often than not. But I do think he's going to have those ups and downs where he's going to have a 30-point game, low 20, low 20, and then all of a sudden have a 6-point game or 8-point game. And then he'll have a 20 and then have a 30 and then he'll have a low 20. He's gonna do that. I just think that's a part of his DNA. Um, but I think that he will prove that he's worth what they're paying him right now, which isn't superstar money. They're not paying him a max all-star level contract. And so to some extent, they're just playing him like a good quality starter. I think the real questions that they really have to take a look at is what they're going to do along that bench unit. What are they going to do when it comes to the young guys who are still there, who still need to develop, like Reed Shepard, right? Guys like that. They also have the number 10 pick, which I'm interested to see what they do with because they can use some size. I got guys like Maxime Reynard as potentially a great pickup for somebody like Houston. Someone who's at 7 feet, coming out of Stanford, who's able to stretch the floor, rebound. He's experienced. He can come in and play defense. He can play physical. He's going to run up and down the court. And I think that he could be a great complement alongside Tari Eason, Alperen Şengün, and Jabari Smith Jr. He can take a lot of those Steven Adams minutes, giving the team that size on the interior. Even if he's not as skilled defensively, he's going to give you a lot more offensively and across the board, especially with free throw shooting and things of that nature. I think he would be a great pickup for them. I think Reed Shepard has a better offseason. Um, they do have to address that guard spot off the bench. I think that they need somebody like Jordan Clarkson. They need a guy who can come in off the bench and get buckets in that backcourt, create for himself, create for others. Uh, in that Malik Monk role, Colin Sexton type, a guy who can, especially when Jalen Green is struggling, which we know he will at times, you need to be able to bring him off the bench and he can relieve a lot of that pressure to be able to create and play make off the bench. Um, so I think that that's the route they go in their offseason draft and trades or free agency. Let me get to the next team. Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm gonna try to get through all these teams that have been knocked out so far. Cavaliers, they have to have a come to God moment. Do they believe in this roster or not? Because if you can't stay healthy when they need you the most, then you can't have a team that's in the second apron. You can't. And depleting your depth in order to just get under the second apron doesn't help you when you have starters who are injury prone. You need depth. So you're going to have to kind of recalibrate and reorganize your thoughts around what type of roster construction you are going to have. Who is going to be a part of your core? I don't know if Darius Garland and Jared Allen work as well. I think for Darius Garland's contract, you could potentially get two other guys that maybe do enough or a little bit of what Garland does in different ways, but maybe have more size. That maybe give you more size in that backcourt that allows you to defend a bit better, right? I love guys like Io DeSumo. I love guys, even like a Jalen Suggs next to a Donovan Mitchell. I could really see this team upgrading that backcourt. Darius Garland should be in high demand around the league. Uh, Places like the Phoenix Suns, all these different teams could be options for them. And so I think that they will shop around. Now they do have some free agency questions to answer, where they have Ty Jerome, who was absolutely huge for them, absolutely huge for them. And they have to figure out will they bring him back? I think he is definitely due for a pay raise. And then they also have last year's draft pick. What's his name? Quickly pull it up. Yeah, Cleveland Cavaliers. No, not the Hawks. Cavaliers. Uh, Jalen Tyson. He's only 22 years old, 6'7", 215, 220 pounds, a do-it-all type of player out of Cal Berkeley. Same spot that Jalen Brown went to. Uh, I think he has a lot of skill. And I think he's somebody that they can definitely see taking Isaac Okoro's spot, um, or a Sam Merrill spot. But he's going to be called to contribute next year because they're going to have to get under this second apron, and that's going to mean a lot of reorganizing of this roster. Let me see. I'm gonna go on to the next team, the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic, if I'm honest with y'all, man, I haven't liked that roster construction for a long time. You can only have so many years relying upon an elite defense and an absolutely decrepit offense. The outlook for that team at their best is going to be having someone who can take Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner off the ball. Look, if they get a rebound and they rip and go, that's totally fine. But being a full-time facilitator is not going to work. And if I am the head coach for the Orlando Magic, I need to revamp this offense stat now. If I am what's my brother's name? Y'all let me know his name in the chat. Head coach for the Orlando Magic. If I'm him, I'm sitting with all my coaches and saying we have to have a better offense. Yeah, I know we brought in KCP to be a shooter. His shot left him. I think he'll have a bounce back year next year, and that can improve a lot of the offense. However, I think you need to take the ball out of Paulo Banquero's hand and Franz Wagner's hands. Even Jalen Suggs. He's not a point guard. Let's just be honest. He's not. And so, Coach Mosley, yep. Thank you, Sports Times. It's good to see you in there, man. I think that they need to revamp that offense totally. And this is where I said there's going to be a lot of moving and shaking because when you look at these teams with limited options, there's going to be a lot of players on the move, and that can reshape the entire NBA in really incredible ways. Because teams that are one piece away, one good piece away from stepping from outside the playoffs and the play-in to firmly in the playoffs, teams like the Atlanta Hawks, right? Can they get that center, that DeAndre Ayton type, like that one guy that can move them into a fifth seed, sixth seed type of spot, right? And so when we see these moves taking place in this offseason, we're going to see teams positioning themselves to say, hey, if we're healthy, we're as good as anybody. We're as good as the majority. We have a shot to be a second round playoff team, if not maybe break through like an Indiana Pacers did. Right. So that's where it's going to be really exciting. Also, when I look at the Cavaliers, I know that they have a draft pick, but I don't think that there's too many guys where they're picking in the draft that are going to be able to contribute in any type of significant way. I don't think that they have space to develop anybody, but picking at number 49, yeah, the guys I see down there are basically probably going to be uh, G League guys, period. Yeah, somebody like Hanson Yang. I like him. Drake Powell out of North Carolina, Alex Condon from Florida, right? I think those guys might fall, and Cleveland can try to grab one of them who can be somewhat of a Jalen Tyson from this past season, right? Have good moments and promise, but they're mostly playing in the G League. And then the following year, they step into a more prominent role where they already know the system, they already know what you're looking for. That's how I see the Cleveland Cavaliers moving this offseason. Oh, I'm sorry. And then that also speaks to the Orlando Magic as well. I don't think that they can develop any more guys. They've got too many young guys. They've got too many young guys. Let me just look at this roster real quick. Um, we see Sports Times next season will be so much fun to watch after this offseason mix up for all these teams. Facts. Facts. I'm excited about I said at the beginning, this is my favorite time of year. I'm thinking about this stuff all the time, coincidentally, because it's just fun to imagine what teams are going to be able to do. Like I'm really excited about somebody like the Atlanta Hawks, right? Who with Trey Young, Dyson Daniels, Zachary Risachet, Jalen Johnson coming back, and an opportunity to upgrade that center position, they can take a huge jump, huge jump, right? They got that bench unit. Um, Pull them up real quick, and I'll go back to Orlando. They got the bench unit. They got Karis LeVert. They got a Kongwu. They got Terrence Mann. Uh, Larry Nance is a free agent. I think he's going to be gone. But they got George Niang as well, right? These are all guys, and Kobe Buffkin, and Vic Krejci, right? Like, and Muhammad Gay. Like, yo, Dominic Barlow even had good moments for them. Like, this is a good roster when they're healthy. That's a good team. The biggest question mark is that center position. Can they go out and get somebody like DeAndre Ayton? I think they can. I think they can. And when they upgrade that position alone, it's going to reach, it's going to, I think everything else is going to fall into place. I completely do. Completely do. Now, let me say this. Back to the Orlando Magic. They have too many young guys. Too many. When you get past the core, you get down to guys like Tristan. Well, Tristan De is not too young, but Jet Howard, right? He's 21 years old. Then you have Paulo Banchero is 20. Man, it's crazy to think that he's only 22. Jalen Suggs is 23. Anthony Black is 21. Right. Who else is here? Caleb Houston is 22. Right. These are the guys they are relying upon to solidify their bench outside of Paulo and Suggs. But it's to say that they don't have leadership in the positions that they need to be able to move forward with this team. They just don't. Gary Harris is great, but I think that he plays too much of a supplementary, complementary role. He's not necessarily a leader in the locker room. There needs to be somebody who can tell Paulo and Franz, hey, give me the ball. We're going to run this play. And it's not to say that those guys are ball hogs, but when I look at this team, they don't have that veteran leadership to lead them in a playoff game. In the playoff game, their youngest guys were their leaders, were their de facto leaders. When you contrast that with a team like the Detroit Pistons, Tobias Harris was a leader. Tobias Harris is over 30 years old. Right? Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, those guys, late 20s. Those guys can talk to the young guys in the locker room and say, hey, keep your head up. Hey, we got this. Hey, this is what we need to do at this moment. I don't see Jonathan Isaac being that guy. KCP, maybe, but he's never really been an outspoken guy. He's kind of more of a quiet veteran. I think they need some more loud veterans. I think this is why they ended up going with Corey Joseph outside of Jalen Suggs' injury, but Corey Joseph in that starting lineup. Because they needed somebody who could vocalize leadership, who can tell guys where to go, where to be, and get them on track. They just need to upgrade that. They need to have what Corey Joseph was getting was giving them, even though he signed through next season. He's on a team option for next year. So they still have Anthony Black and Gary Harris and Jalen Suggs and KCP and Cole Anthony. Like they just really have a glut of guys that none of them. I don't know how much they're really moving this team forward. They need to figure out what this team is going to be because it can't keep being a flame out in the first round. I think if this team, if the Orlando Magic flames out in the first round again, they're not going to blow it up, but they're going to completely retool. They're going to completely retool. They're going to get rid of a whole bunch of guys, and it's helpful that they also have a lot of guys under team option extensions for next season. So they're going to be doing a lot of reevaluating, but it's a crucial year because after next year, that retooling is also going to include the front office and potentially the head coaching position. We'll get to some of these comments. Yep, Coach Mosley. Exactly, man. We have no idea what the standings will look like. Old teams are falling, new teams are rising completely, which is why you can't just stand pat. That's why when it comes to my Pistons, I'm like, yo, y'all are going to have to make sure that you retool in these areas, especially with the veterans, in a really intentional way. Bringing in a Marcus Smart and a Chris Middleton can completely transform that bench unit. Completely. It can unlock some defensive potential and some defensive versatility that allows you to get stops when you need it. Remember, next season, you're going to have a lot of offense coming from Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, and even Asar Thompson, and Ron Holland and Marcus Sasser, Tobias Harris. Those guys are only going to continue to improve offensively. Can you get the stops? Can you get the guys who know what to do in the right moments so that you can maximize possessions? And that's where I think that the greatest upgrade is going to be. Similarly with the Orlando Magic, they need to upgrade in that area. Now, let me get on to the Lakers, everyone's favorite team to talk about and Malign that we all talk about them so much. I hardly ever talk about them, but let me just talk to them because they're in the category of teams who've been knocked out in the playoffs already, who've already lost. The Los Angeles Lakers, they need a center. Bad, bad. Expect them to go hard after a Jarrett Allen, potentially Derek Lively. They're going to go hard after somebody to fill that role. Maybe it's DeAndre Ayton. Who knows? But expect them to fill that position of need. Expect Bronny James to move into a rotation player. Say that to say that he was always built for the NBA. He wasn't built for college. He wasn't built for high school. He wasn't built for guys who are in that 1v1 type of cultural mode where you step back, crossover, have all these one-on-one moves that don't translate to the NBA. He knows how to do the right thing at the right time in the right way. That's why he's going to be valuable. He's going to play a lot like a more athletic um, Gabe Vincent, who's still under contract. So I like their general roster: LeBron, Luca, Rui, Dorian Finney-Smith, Austin Reeves, Gabe Vincent. Maxi Kleber, which is really interesting. I don't know if he was just injured, but he did not play almost at all, and he's known as being a stretch big, playing that 4-5 role, kind of like a Draymond Green. Not as much facilitating, but definitely versatile defense. And so I was shocked to see him not get playing time. I'm not sure if that was because he was dealing with the injury or not, but it's to say I think there's an opportunity to use that contract of 11.5 million, or sorry, 11 million to make a trade. Jared Vanderbilt is also a big time player for them in terms of bringing some athleticism, versatility on the perimeter, especially defensively, moving without the ball, getting out in transition. Dalton Connect, excellent shooter off the bench. I think he has that much better of a sophomore campaign, especially because he's coming in as an older rookie at 24 years old. And then you got guys like Jackson Hayes who are going to be off the books. All right, you got Christian Koloko, who I really liked out of University of Arizona. Um, Showed me some really good, like he's almost like a poor man's Evan Mobley, but he dealt with blood clots that kept him out for I want to say almost 2 years. So he's really been behind developmentally because of that. And now, after a full season under his belt, I think he gets his legs back under him. I would bring him back if I'm the Lakers. I would also make sure that I trade for a starting level center. And that's going to be somewhere around the contracts of Rui Hachimura. He's getting 18 million next year. Dorian Finney-Smith, 15 million next year. Gabe Vincent, 11 and a half. Maxi Kleber, 11. Jared Vanderbilt, 11 and a half. Those contracts in that low medium range for the Lakers are going to be used to bring in a center. Period. And I think the person who probably ends up outside looking in is Maxi Kleber, and potentially a Dorian Finney-Smith, giving them about 25 million a year to use, and that can get you Jarrett Allen. That can get you, let's see, potentially. See, what is DeAndre Ayton making? 34, 35. I don't think he could get there, but that might be the type of guy that you're looking at. Okay, let's move on. The Grizzlies. The Grizzlies, man. I think they like a lot of the guys. I don't think that they bring back Jaren Jackson Jr. and what's his name? Pull him up real quick. And Santi Aldama. They're going to choose one of the two, contract wise, because Jaren Jackson Jr. after next season is going to be an unrestricted free agent, which means he's due for a huge pay increase. You got Desmond Bain already at 36 million next year and 39 the following year and 42, 44 after that. John Morant is due 39 next year, 42 after that, and 44 after that. This roster is getting expensive. And they have to be looking at that and saying, look, if we can't get past the second round again, this roster is going to have to look very different. Now, considering that they still got guys like Brandon Clark, who's on a pretty reasonable deal, 12 million. And they brought in other athletic bigs like Marvin Bagley the third at 12.5 million, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent. He could be just about anywhere next year. Who knows? But Santi Aldama has been a major part of that team at only 24 years old at 7 feet. He's somebody they're going to have to make a real decision about, considering they also got Brandon Clark and they also have Zach Edey, last year's first round pick, who was their starting center. So a lot of this roster has already been structured in place. But the biggest area of need is in veteran leadership. I cannot understate how valuable it is for teams to have veterans who can calm the young guys down, tell the young guys what needs to happen, but also act as accountability and responsibility in the locker room. It's hard to be overly turnt when you got a bunch of 30-year-olds in the locker room. You can be turned a little bit, but they remind you like, hey, we got kids, we got family, and it balances you out in terms of maturity, emotionally, how you react to different situations. It balances you out. They didn't have veterans to rein in any of those guys. Now, I don't. I'd be remiss not to mention all the young talent they have. Jalen Wells, who got injured late in the season, was a rookie starter for them. Scottie Pippen Jr. gave them excellent minutes. Jay Huff, who's great off the bench. Vince Williams Jr., who didn't get back into the playing rotation until after he got healed up. He was out most of the year injured. I said Zach Edey. You got Conchar still under contract at a minimal deal. Luke Kennard is probably on his way out the door. You have a lot of young assets. And similar to a team like the Indiana Pacers, they are due for a consolidation trade. Even the Orlando Magic, I would say, is due for a consolidation trade. That is the team who would love to trade two or three for one. They would love to trade two or three guys for your one. Your one guy that's really good. And there are three guys that can be rotation players either in a starting unit or bench unit in the playoffs. High level contributors. Because they can't pay all those guys, nor can they play all those guys. And they need some guys with more maturity. They need some guys who can really look the other young guys in the eyes and say, this is what we need to do. Now, I don't know why Jimmy Butler didn't want to go to Memphis, but he would have been the perfect small forward for them. He would have been perfect between Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson Jr., especially with his rebounding on the interior. Jaren Jackson Jr.'s three-point shooting, Zach Edey down low. I think Jimmy would have thrived there with John Morant, really rejuvenated him. Um, but I think maybe Jimmy just wanted greener pastures also in terms of marketing. I think he wants to move into like theater and movies and stuff like that. I think he just has a different outlook for this next phase of his career as a professional, beyond basketball even. So I get that that makes sense when you look at teams like Golden State Warriors, right? We have a really um, living in the Bay Area, a lot of tech, a lot of theater, a lot of movie industry stuff, a lot of Marvel stuff was out here. So maybe that appeals to him. But I thought he would have been perfect in Memphis. But I do think that they need to bring in vets. They need veterans. They need Kyle Anderson back. They need guys who can look these other young guys in the eyes and say, "This is what we need to do," and make sure that they execute, keep them balanced. And I thought that that was a huge loss for this team when Kyle Anderson left. So I expect them to um, bring in some vets and consolidate a lot of these young assets. The next couple teams I'm going to run through quickly. The Clippers. Um, I think they upgrade the bench. I think they got the number 30 pick in the draft. I think someone said today on YouTube, I forget my brother's name, who does draft content, but he had, oh, where is he at? Ryan Kalkbrenner going number 30 to the Los Angeles Clippers. Why do I start here with the Clippers? Because this Clippers team is not breaking up. They are not dismissing what they got. What they are going to have to do is supplement and reinforce, and they're going to stand pat in a lot of ways. James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, that's your core. And they might try to bring in guys who are ready to contribute to a playoff ready team at a high level. I do think that they're a team that, man, had they landed in the right playoff kind of bracketing where they didn't have to face the Denver Nuggets in round one, they would have been a team that was progressing, right? If they were able to face the Rockets or the Warriors or even the Grizzlies, maybe even the Lakers in round one, they would have been in round two, but they didn't. They face the Denver Nuggets, who look as much like a championship team as they always have. And so I think that that's what they do. They retool around this roster. There are some free agency things that they're going to have to address. They're going to have to look at what their current roster construction is like. Nicholas Batum has a player option, though I think he will exercise because he likes playing there. Amir Coffey is 27 years old, played valuable minutes for them. I don't know if they can re-sign him. I do think that's somebody I would love for the Pistons to look at. 27 years old, plays winning basketball, very versatile. That's the type of guy that a lot of teams will be looking at. Can knock down shots. He knows where to be. He's a winner. He's a winner. And so you always want guys who are from winning programs, winning organizations. And he would be somebody who is thought of for sure. Now, where they need to upgrade, they got Ben Simmons. I do think that with Ben Simmons, bring in, they might look to bring him back. But I think that bringing in someone like Kalkbrenner to be the backup center, they still got Bogdanovich, who's 32 years old. I think Norman Powell's still under contract. This is still a really good team. So I don't see them making a lot of moves because their core is still under contract, ready to go, drip and run, and they are still under the second apron. Great job, Clippers. Great job. The Miami Heat and Bucks, I may have to get back to later because I'm already running long. But the Miami Heat, I think they got to figure out a direction who they're going to build around. I wouldn't be shocked if Bam Adebayo is gone by the end of the season next year, and they start building around the young guys. I think they need to upgrade that point guard position. There's several guys that they can look at in the first round. Walter Clayton is one of those guys. Um, yeah, they got Walter Clayton would be a great potential candidate. Nolan Traore, um, and they also got what's his name, Tahad Pettiford out of Auburn, who's tearing it up right now in the open runs there. Um, the Bucks, the Bucks, I think are blowing it up. Bobby Portis is probably gone. Giannis is probably gone. Brooke Lopez is gone. That should be somebody else that the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers are looking at. He could be a real steal to get at center, give them a solid 20 minutes a game, could do big things for them at that position. And I think he would enjoy playing with some veterans towards the back end of his career. Uh, but yeah, I think the Bucks are blowing it up. I think they go with the youth movement. We'll see what they do. They got the number two pick. No, sorry, not the number two pick. I'm tripping. The Bucks have shit. They don't have a pick. They're likely to have the number two pick. That's why I was thinking of it. If they trade Giannis to San Antonio, so these are all things to think about. I think the Bucks. If I'm the Bucks, honestly, what I'm looking for is I'm trying to see if I can get AJ DeBonta or Cam Boozer or Darren Peterson in next year's draft. But I'm gonna get to more of that later. We got a long off season to go. Appreciate it if y'all stay with me this far. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. I love y'all. Appreciate the family and everybody contributing in the chat. Oh man, Sports Times, you had some good comments here that I didn't get a chance to get to. Um, yeah, Philly Pistons, Orlando Hawks are going to shake up the East, maybe Chicago and Toronto even. I completely agree, especially with Toronto as well. There's so many moves to potentially make that can upgrade a lot of these teams. I wonder if they're still interested in Duran. I know Pistons aren't going for it though. Yeah, no, they're not. No, Pistons aren't trading away Duran. I think he gets extended for under 20 million a year, um, and begins to outplay that contract in another year or two and has a great run of it for the next 4 or 5 years. But as always, it's your man, 100 grand, Ross, for The Rock Never Stops. I'm going to be back. I still got to talk about the teams that fell off in the play-in. I probably tried to tackle too many teams. Probably should have been a two segment, not all at once. I'm learning, growing, figuring it out. Yeah, I'm going to get at y'all later. I hope you had a good one. Peace.